I'd like to welcome you all for joining us for the online open house and live question and answer session about the Sear Bridge rehabilitation and the Daigle Lane Railroad crossing projects. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes as attendees are populating in for the presentation and the live Q&A, and we'll begin here in a moment. My name's Brandon Coates, and I am with RBCI. I am hired with consulting with MDT to provide public involvement outreach. So I am handling the communication and outreach for both the Sear Bridge rehabilitation and the Daigle Lane Railroad crossing projects. And we'll do introductions here again in a moment. Looks like we have most of the attendees probably in now. So the Montana Department of Transportation is using online meetings and presentations to engage with the public rather than in-person meetings due to community health and safety concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic. We do look forward to meeting in person again in the future. But during the online sessions, MDT and the project team members will provide an overview of each of the projects and then talk about the next steps. Following the presentations, a live question and answer session will be held to answer your questions. In order to participate in the Q&A session, I want you to locate the Q&A button that's on the bottom of your screen. And by clicking on it, it'll pop up a box that allows you to type in and submit questions during the presentation. You can submit those questions at any time throughout the presentation, either presentation, the Sear Bridge, which will then be followed by the Daigle Lane presentation. Following both presentations, we'll answer all questions. There won't be an audio portion for the attendees, for the public. The MDT and the project team will answer the questions audibly. So the online session will also be recorded, and then a copy of the recording will be posted to the project websites. We'd like to invite you to ask your neighbors and coworkers and friends that couldn't attend to view the presentation and then participate in an online survey and provide comments by visiting the project websites. The website addresses for both projects will be shown at the end of the presentation as well. The online survey will be available on the website until December 23rd, and then we will wrap up that summary. You can provide comments at any time during the project, however. Now I'd like to turn over the microphone to the MDT pre-construction engineer from the Missoula District, Jacqueline Smith.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, my name is Jacqueline Smith, and I am the pre-construction engineer for the Missoula District. So I oversee the pre-construction program for about the western 1/3 of the state. I also do live in this area. First off, I really want to emphasize, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us this evening to discuss the Sear Bridge and Daigle Lane Railroad crossing projects. I also want to echo what Brandon said earlier, that we wish this could have been in person, and we do look forward to when we can return to in-person meetings and have those more personal conversations with you. We decided to have this open house cover these two projects because of how close they are to each other, as you can see in this slide, and they are also currently developing on very similar schedules. We will first present the information for the Sear Bridge project, followed by the information for the Daigle Lane project. But before we do that, I would like to get the rest of the team introduced. With me today, we'll start with Brandon, since he already spoke.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, again, I'm Brandon Coates. I'm with RBCI, and I'm the public involvement manager for both these projects. My role is to provide you with the project information, gather your input and comments, and then share that information back with both of the project teams. So I'm your main point of contact for both of these projects.
Thank you, Brandon. And then we have Andy with RBCI.
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline. I work with RBCI alongside Brandon. My name is Andy Barsness, and we work in relaying information from MDT to the public, as well as gathering feedback from the public to give to MDT. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we've got Andy Cullison.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Carlson. I'm the Bridge Area Engineer for the Missoula District, and I'm the Project Manager for the Sear Bridge Project.
Thank you. John?
Good evening, everybody. My name's John Altoff. I'm MDT's Rail Highway Safety Manager, and I manage the program that will be funding the Daigle Lane Railroad Crossing Project.
Thank you.
Did you say Kate? Sorry.
I did. Sorry. Yes. Kate.
Oh, this is Kate Reed with RBCI, and I'll be helping out with the live Q&A tonight.
Thank you. And Scott.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Gherkin, the project manager for the Daigle Lane project. I oversee the design and project development of the project. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. With that, I will now hand the conversation over to Andy so he can start with the Sear Bridge project.
All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, for the Sear Bridge project, MDT is currently in the early stages of the structural rehabilitation design process for the Sear Bridge, located near Alberton on Old Highway 10. This project is scoped to rehabilitate the bridge, extending the service life and increasing the load capacity of the structure. The bridge deck and railing will be replaced, the existing truss will be repaired and strengthened, and the concrete approach spans will be strengthened or replaced. Once complete, the posted 11-ton weight limit restriction will be removed. This will allow all legal vehicles to cross the bridge. I do want to make sure everyone is clear that the bridge is currently safe to drive on for vehicles at or below the posted load restriction gross vehicle weight of 11 tons currently. Slide. The purpose and need for the project is simple. A safe, long-term, and low-maintenance crossing is needed at this location. Therefore, the purpose of the project is to economically repair or replace the various deteriorated elements of this 89-year-old bridge while increasing the load capacity to support all legal loads. Slide. Okay, but before I continue discussing the Sear Bridge project, I would like to take a quick minute to describe the MDT Bridge Bureau's organization and the services it provides. MDT often receives questions about how Montana's bridges are managed, so I thought I would touch on it briefly before we move on. The MDT Bridge Bureau is tasked with keeping Montana's bridges safe, resilient, economical, and reliable. The Bridge Bureau is organized into two sections, the Bridge Management section and the Bridge Design section. MDT's Bridge Management section provides condition inspection and load rating evaluation for the 5,000 plus public bridges across the state. The Bridge Management section also evaluates and analyzes overweight permit loads and performs bridge maintenance on state-owned structures. MDT's Bridge Design section provides design and engineering management on bridge replacements, rehabilitation, and preservation projects. The Bridge Design section also establishes and maintains design criteria and standards, design initiatives to improve bridge performance and value. If anyone has any specific questions about the MDT's Bridge Bureau here today, I will happily answer them at the end. All right, slide. All right, back to the Sear Bridge project. For the Sear Bridge, rehabilitation will provide many of the same benefits as a full bridge replacement while costing the taxpayers much less, reducing construction time and preserving the historic look of the structure. Slide. The proposed improvements for the bridge include a new concrete bridge deck, a new bridge guardrail, strengthening of the historic steel truss superstructure, strengthening of the concrete approach span superstructures, new expansion joints, and some minor corrosion repair and spot painting of various steel bridge members. Also, the roadway on either side of the bridge will be resurfaced and have new guardrail placed at each end of the structure. The other improvement of note is the turnout near the east approach will also be paved. Slide. The Sear Bridge will need to be closed to traffic during construction. The bridge is too narrow for the rehabilitation work to occur simultaneously with traffic. The closure will be coordinated with emergency responders, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and other local service providers such as the U.S. Postal Service. There will be advanced signage that directs traffic to the detour route. MDT is examining different detour routes involving the Alberta Interchange, Sear Interchange, and Fish Creek Interchange. Also of note, there may be times when rafting and other recreation beneath the bridge could be restricted or directed to one side of the river while construction is being performed overhead. MDT will provide more information about construction plans and detour routes as the final plans are developed closer to construction. We will share all of these plans with the public prior to the beginning of construction. Slide. As part of any federally funded project, in this case funding from federal highways, MDT needs to ensure the project is compliant with National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and the Montana Environmental Policy Act, or MEPA. These acts require MDT to assess the environmental effects of the proposed actions prior to making decisions. Using the NEPA process, MDT evaluated the environmental and related social and economic effects of the proposed actions. The evaluation also requires review under a few other important federal acts, which include Endangered Species Act and Migratory Bird Treaty Act. MDT conducted a site investigation of the bridge to look for potential environmental concerns and document the environmental baseline. We looked at the historic nature of the bridge, wildlife and the habitat, the nearby waters, wetlands, river use, birds nesting on the bridge structure, and potential for environmental contamination, hazardous materials such as asbestos. Our analysis resulted in the finding of no significant impacts and a level of NEPA environmental review called a categorical exclusion. All right, slide. The Sear Bridge project overall is on schedule to be constructed in 2023. MDT's pre-construction design teams are currently performing activities associated with preliminary design and will continue to do so for the coming months. Final plans are scheduled to be developed in 2021 and complete near the end of 2022. When MDT nears the completion of the final plans, we'll present those to the public and provide another opportunity for comment. And with that, I guess I would just like to say thank you, and I'll hand it back over to Brandon.
Thank you, Andy. Now I'd like to just take a quick moment before we move on to the Daigle Lane Railroad Crossing project and remind you about the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. So you can enter questions at any time by typing in that question and answer box. So if you have any questions about the Sear Bridge, you can begin adding those in now. And again, we'll hold those questions. We'll answer them following the Daigle Lane project presentation information. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Scott Gherkin from MDT to talk about the Daigle Lane Railroad Crossing project.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this evening. The Daigle Lane project is a safety project. It's been identified as needing some safety improvements. So in this slide, you can see it's about 350 feet long. It starts a little west of the railroad crossing, does not affect Juniper Lane at all. So it starts west and continues all the way over to Old Highway 10. Actually, maybe it's, yeah, let's move on to the next slide, if you would, Brandon. So I think this slide kind of tells a lot what's going on here. The slide on the right, we have a fairly narrow road. It's 20 feet up the width on the top. And for the installation of the crossing gates, we will need to widen this out to 24 feet. Just right here at the crossing and some distance back, and then tapering back to the existing 20-foot width. So right now, we have stop signs on both directions, as well as the crossbucks. So crossing signal gates will be installed, as well as signals. The slide on the left does a lot to show what you folks experience as you drive over these tracks. Particularly just to the right of the tracks, you can see there's a fairly significant kink that's certainly less than ideal. So part of the improvement will also be to improve the profile, the road profile going over the tracks. It will no longer have this kink. It'll be a much smoother. It'll have a curvature shape to it, so a lot easier to drive over, and also provide a better clearance for like low hitches and low trailers driving over that. And you can also on this picture see the railroad crossing surface, and that surfing will also be upgraded with this project. I think that kind of covers thing on this slide. So if you can move over to the next one. Yeah, again, just a little different look of the crossing, widening over to 24 feet, smoother driving surface. Again, that's the profile that MDT will do, and then the railroad will install a new surface, and then the signal crossing and gates. Next slide, please. So 24 feet total width, 12 feet is our standard travel lane width. It'll have new, right now, of course, you know that it does have asphalt surfacing. We will put that down as well, the bituminous surface, and then something over 1/2 foot of crushed aggregate for a structural below that. Yeah, actually, this picture does a really good job of showing that severe. I mean, just the angle of it, you can see how there's a sudden drop off. So after this, the profile, it would not be that way at all. So next slide, Andy, or sorry, Brandon. So here's an overview of the project. The dark center line down Daigle Lane is the center line. And you can see how that, as it goes towards Old Highway 10, you can see how it makes a curve to Old Highway 10. And then the dark line going down Sawmill Gulch, again, just simply the center line going down that road. The faint gray lines represent what has been surveyed for property lines, right-of-way, easements, and such. So that represents all of the records that have been found at the courthouse. So no other things have been discovered. The dark black line alongside Daigle Lane represents the proposed construction limits. Okay, and what that basically means is, as we do our work to widen the roadway surface, to raise the grade, to provide that smoother transition, we obviously will also need to work outside of the roadway surface, do some excavating, and that's what those dark black lines refer to. And I think you can see that most of the work will actually be done within the railroad right-of-way, so that we should have very, very little right-of-way involvement here. And another thing I wanted to bring to your attention, we do have a fairly limited a budget for this project, so the scope also needs to be fairly limited. It's driven by the safety improvements on this at this crossing, but we also, since we need to make that profile to the east of the crossing, we decided to go all the way ahead and connect into Old Highway 10. And right now, you can see there's a fairly extensive area that vehicles can travel through, accessing Old Highway 10, Daigle Lane, Sawmill Gulch. And having such a wide area like this is not the safest design out there. So if Brandon can sort of to the lower right show that loop, that dotted loop, that would be the new proposed edge of surfacing. So that gray area representing the existing surfacing would be removed. And anybody who drives through this area, I think, probably would have some concern about, well, what kind of vehicles would we be able to drive through here? And we've done some preliminary designs with that. We have tools that allow us to drive basically a semi truck through this area, and a large semi truck would be able to make all of these maneuvers. So even though the surfacing will be reduced, you still will be able to continue to drive through the area as you have been. So again, it's just another measure to improve the safety of that area. I think that pretty much covers this slide. So yeah, Brandon, next one. Construction traffic control. Of course, that's always an important thing for any highway project. We've all driven through those traffic control areas. So we will maintain local access throughout construction. For the railroad to install the new driving, or excuse me, the new crossing surface, that crossing will need to be closed for, as it says here, roughly a 6 to 8 hour time span. So as project develops, we'll figure out ways that traffic will still be able to move through that area. Obviously, we can't prohibit emergency traffic through that area in particular. So measures will be made for, it might be just a simple, very short detour through that area. So anyhow, local access will be provided. And even with that full closure, there'll be some measure taken to provide some temporary access through that area. Next slide, Brandon, please. And here's the rough schedule. We are currently right now in design. You saw the preliminary work there on a previous slide. And our presentation is going underway right now to the public. Final design will continue into next year, and also somewhat into 2022. There'll be various permitting involved. Andy, during his discussion, he referred to environmental permitting. That would be part of that. Final presentation to the public in spring of 2022. And then construction possibly later that fall, or maybe into 2023, just kind of depending on how the schedule goes. Next slide. Maybe this is my last one. What is the next one? Okay, that was it for me. Thanks everyone for joining, listening to our discussion, and we will be addressing questions here in just a little bit.
Thank you, Scott. So public involvement and public input that's collected as part of this online meeting and through the online survey that's posted on the website, as well as any comments that are sent in, along with the future environmental and design analysis that the project team will be performing, will all be considered in the development of the project and planning for construction. MDT is planning to use a variety of methods to communicate with the public throughout the design and the construction of the project. Some of those methods include online meetings like this one today, in-person meetings, mailers sent through the US mail, news media stories, social media, email, text messaging, and updates to the project websites. We do plan to hold in-person public meetings if and when is possible in the future to share more information about the projects and to gather information that'll help in the development of the construction plans and the final designs. The next public meeting for both of these projects is planned for 2022. However, the project team will coordinate with any other MDT projects that are in the area that might be going on simultaneously to provide project updates and gather comments at those meetings if their meetings happen to happen before that as well. I'd like to remind you again, if you have friends or neighbors that were unable to participate in today's session, please direct them to the project websites where they can view the recording of the presentation and then provide comments and input through the online survey. The survey questions, they include questions about how to best communicate project information with you now and during construction. So if you could please submit your surveys by December 23rd. And again, the website addresses are there on the screen, and they are the same websites that you went to register. There's a tab for public involvement and meetings that this information will be posted on. With that, I'd like to thank you all again for participating in the development of these projects. Keeping the public informed throughout the development is a priority for MDT. And if you have any comments or questions at any time, please feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Brandon Coates, and my email is brandon@rbci.net. My phone number is there listed on the screen as well. And you can send me comments or contact me at any time, not just during the online meetings, but my contact information is on the website. So I will do my best to get your questions answered and then communicate with the project team and get answers back to you as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kate, see if we have any questions that we need to answer. Kate?
Great, thanks, Brandon. We have a few questions here. So our first question is from Chris, and she said, why are you improving this crossing for a dead end road? And I believe John is going to answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that question. Chris, that's a great question. I know you saw the photo where it has the dead end signed. However, Daigle Lane is a dead end road, but Juniper Lane connects into Daigle Lane. And the Juniper Lane does serve a fairly large area south of the interstate there. There's a number of residents back there, along with a rafting company. So this crossing does get quite a bit of use from those folks. So hopefully that answers your question. And thank you for your question.
Perfect, thanks. We have another question from Charlene, and her question was, when and how did the state of Montana acquire the government lot number 3, and what are the boundaries? And I think Jacqueline was going to address that question.
Yeah, thanks, Charlene, for that question. So we had our survey crews out there this past year. So part of it was actually on the site there collecting survey data, but also going to the courthouse and getting some research documents on deeds and whatever information is applicable. I am going to have to follow up with them to get the details on what the information was they pulled for that record. So this is a question that I'm going to have to get back with you on once I get the information from our surveyors. So once we get that information, I'll pass it along to Brandon, who will send it to your email.
Great, thank you, Jacqueline. Our next question is from Jared, and he asked, how many feet is it moving? Scott, I think you were going to address that question.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure what that question's referring to, but I'll take a stab at it. So I did mention how the existing road's 20 feet wide and will be widening to 24 feet. So we have a line down the center line, and our intent is to widen 2 feet onto both sides, and that'll give us that additional 4 feet total. It wouldn't have to be that way. Oftentimes that is the way, and I think it's probably the preferred way to do this, just to keep the center line going as it is, so it matches up better on either sides of the crossing. So and then I guess maybe the other thing you might be referring to, it's I think it's, I'm trying to remember what the distance was to the west of the crossing, maybe about 100 feet or so. What you're seeing here in this picture is fairly accurate. What we have right now, it does not go all the way to Juniper Lane. You can kind of see the dirt approaches that the railroad has within their property, the right of way. So it goes a little bit beyond that, and then of course, as I mentioned, it ties all the way into Old Highway 10. Hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, please ask more, and we can get you a better answer for you. Thanks.
Scott, and he did clarify that that was with the railroad crossing. So.
Okay, so yeah, 2 feet on both sides is what our intent is. Brand new surface there. Thanks a lot, Jared.
Perfect. We have another question from Chris, and I might butcher this, but what is the bituminous surface?
Yeah, I can answer that. And you did very well with the pronunciation. Right, it's bituminous. It's
that's close.
Yeah, it's the black gooey stuff. So I guess maybe to give you a little bit of engineering speak here, we have rigid and flexible pavements. Rigid being concrete, concrete's not terribly flexible. The black stuff that we drive on is a bituminous surface. It is somewhat flexible, and that's what the existing surfacing is out here. Majority of highways, roads are use that material. A little more economical, a little easier to build roads with. Not always the best choice, but for here it certainly is. So yeah, your existing surfacing will consist of the same material that you have out there right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. So we had another question from Charlene, and Scott, you might be able to answer this one as well. She said there is 30 feet of right-of-way along section 136 border for 100 years of the crossing. Is that changing?
30 feet of right-of-way along the section 1.
Yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit too, John.
100 feet.
This is...
Maybe, Charlene, if you could send in a little more information on the Q&A, and we can see if we can have that answered.
Right. I'm not sure what parcel she's referring to.
Yeah, and just to add, we are still early, so to know exactly if we will need any additional right-of-way, we don't know that just yet. But right now we're thinking we may not need any, but it would be helpful for a little more clarification on that question.
Okay, we'll see if she responds, and then we can also follow up with you after, Charlene.
Yeah, this is Scott. Thanks, Jacqueline, for mentioning that. Yeah, the intent of this, I mean, it's a small project. The intent is to keep the footprint, so to speak, the construction limits as minimal as possible. We don't need to get carried away here and create something bigger than what it needs to be. We're hoping to minimize and we're actually hoping to have no right-of-way involvement if possible. And if we do, we will do what we can to minimize. And like Jacqueline said, during project development, we'll be looking into this more and more detail. The limits that you see here right now are proposed. They're conceptual. They very likely could change. So during development, we will work with right-of-way and determine what, if any, is necessary.
Perfect. And she just clarified and said there are roads and surveys that preceded the existence of the Mineral County Courthouse. Where did you get the archives for this project?
Well, you are asking some tricky questions. That I will include that information with the follow-up response for the lot number 3 question, if that works for you, Charlene.
Perfect. And we have another question from Jared, and he asked, on the east side of the bridge, you mentioned an area to be paved. What is the purpose for this paved pullout area, and how much do you estimate the paved area? Thank you. Scott, do you?
Oh, this is Andy. I can probably
Or
answer
Andy?
that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that pullout area is within the east approach that we're going to resurface. And so our roadway design team thought that it would be nice to resurface that as well. I might overspeak here because I don't have any of them on the call with me. But I was looking back at our scope of work, and from what I can tell, I think we were thinking that putting a new surface down while we're repaving that east approach would make sense. And then we're adding a historic marker there too. The historic nature of the bridge is really important. And while we can't maintain all the historic aesthetics, one of the things that we can do is place a historic marker and have that talk about the historic nature of the bridge and the original construction. So that, I don't know if that really answers your question. I think we were just trying to improve it, was maybe the bottom line. And then the second part of the question was, how much do you estimate the paved area? I'm not sure if you're speaking about cost or square footage. Do you want to clarify in the chat? Or maybe you already have. Let me open that back up.
He hasn't clarified.
Yeah, and I don't have an exact cost estimate. I'd have to go dig.
He just said square feet, Andy.
Let me see if the scope of work says anything. I don't know that it does. We could figure that out and get back to you. Is probably where we're going to end up with this. Yeah, I don't see that the scope of work is calling that out specifically. So when we post question or post answers, I can have that posted in.
Great, thank you. Well, we don't have any other questions. We might wait just a minute or two to see if anyone has any other questions. Brandon, I guess we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, we'll hold here for a couple of minutes. We'll have the information up here for the website. Again, my contact information, email address is there. We'll give it another minute if you have a question that pops up. And again, if you have questions that you didn't ask today that come to you, please send them in to me, or through that online survey you can post questions as well, and we'll get those answered best we can. We'll be posting this presentation, like I said, on the websites. Here they should be up in the next couple of days, so you can share that with your friends and neighbors, and they can ask questions as well. Yeah, I don't see any other questions coming through. So I'd really like to thank all of you for participating. Like I said, we're going to have these projects going on for the next couple of years, and then we'll be moving into construction, and we'll be working on the communication portion of construction and impacts, traffic impacts, construction impacts as well. So I'll be talking with a lot of you in the future. So please, like I said, feel free to reach out to me at any time with comments or questions, and we'll work to get those answered. Thank you all for attending tonight. Have a good evening.